This isn't just a story. It's a journey, one that'll stay with you long after the video ends. So if you've ever felt love, loss, betrayal, or hope, then stay with us. Because this story deserves to be heard from the very first second to the very last. If this video moves you, even for a moment, please give it a like. Leave a comment telling us which part hit you the hardest, and share it with someone who needs to feel something real today. And if you love stories that are raw, emotional, and unforgettable, then subscribe to the channel. Because we don't just tell stories here, we bring them to life. Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories. How have you been? Have you been nurturing your dreams lately? Today's story is about healing, responsibility, and the courage to love, even when it feels terrifying. Elena Reynolds, a dynamic creative director in high fashion, and Ethan Stone, a stoic, calculated CEO, both epitomize success and emotional restraint. But one unexpected night, unplanned and unspoken, began a journey neither of them anticipated. A journey that wouldn't just reshape their futures, but would force them to face who they really were. So take a moment. Let me tell you a story. One that didn't begin with love or even with hope. It began with a quiet, unexpected night. It was celebration night at Maison Vieira, a luxury fashion powerhouse based in Chicago. The company had just shattered nationwide sales records thanks to its latest campaign, The Real Shape, led by none other than Elena Reynolds. At 27, she was the youngest creative director in the company's history. But more than that, she was rewriting the rules. Everyone around her was celebrating with laughter, champagne, music echoing through the glamorous 42nd floor. But Elena, dressed in a deep sapphire satin gown, stood quietly by the towering windows, staring at the sparkling city skyline. A million stories unfolded beneath her feet, yet her own heart felt still. Maybe success didn't always silence the ache. Quite the view, came a low voice behind her. Ethan Stone, the man behind the empire, 36 years old. Sharp, strategic, untouchable. The kind of man who never raised his voice, because he never had to. He wore power like a tailored suit, crisp, clean, and impossible to ignore. Congratulations, he said simply. No charm, no flattery, just truth. They stood in silence, watching the city lights, before their conversation shifted from numbers and projections to something far more personal. She spoke of her mother, a nurse who raised her alone, working night shifts to keep a roof over their heads and love in their home. Ethan spoke about his father, cold, legacy-obsessed, who considered vulnerability a defect. And his mother? She disappeared into silence long before she physically left. There was no flickering candlelight, no flirtatious glances, just a bottle of wine and two professionals on a leather couch, slowly unraveling. And then a kiss, soft, slow, not born of lust or passion, but something more vulnerable. For that one moment, they weren't CEO and creative director. They were two tired souls who didn't want to face the night alone. Some truths don't need to be shouted. Two faint pink lines were all it took to upend Elena Reynolds' sense of control. 6 weeks after that night, she sat curled on the cold tile floor of her River North apartment bathroom. The third pregnancy test lay trembling in her hands. All 3 tests said the same thing. Positive. The kind of positive that turns your world upside down. She looked up at her reflection in the mirror. Gone was the poised, unshakable Elena the world knew. Her curls were undone. Her lips pale. Eyes wide with fear. Reynolds women don't break, she whispered. We bend, then we rise. Her mother had done it alone, while working night shifts and still leaving love notes in lunchboxes. She had taught Elena that strength didn't mean feeling fearless. It meant choosing to keep going even when everything inside screamed to stop. So, Elena stood. She wiped her face, put on her best navy pantsuit, and went to work. At the office, she was flawless. Meetings, pitches, emails. But the nausea was getting worse. And every time she passed Ethan Stone in the hallway, her stomach twisted, not from the baby, but from everything they hadn't said. They hadn't spoken about that night. Until Monday morning, after a long strategy session, Ethan said, "Reynolds, a word in my office." Her heart skipped. Her fingers clenched the file folder. But she followed him in, head held high. He didn't look up, just typed. She stood in silence, waiting. He finally began, but she cut him off. "I'm pregnant." Flat, direct, like ripping off a bandage. His fingers froze. He looked up, really looked. "Are you sure?" 3 tests. "I'll confirm with the doctor." Silence. Then he leaned back, folded his hands. "What do you want?" Not curious, cautious, cold. If it's money, support, a promotion, just say it. It wasn't his words that broke her. It was his tone. Like she was a crisis he had to contain. She stared at him, voice quiet but burning. "I don't want your money, Ethan. I don't want anything. I just thought you deserved to know." Then she turned and walked out. Stepped steady. Her heart, not so much. For the next few days, Ethan Stone didn't say a word. Not in meetings. Not in emails. Not in hallways. He was always professional, always focused. But when Elena entered the room, his eyes would flicker, just for a second, and then return to the spreadsheets and sales charts like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Elena, meanwhile, kept her world spinning. She didn't take a single day off. She handled presentations, launched a new fall campaign, even flew to New York for a brief pop-up event. No one knew. Only Isla, her best friend since college, suspected something. "You're working like a robot," Isla said one night, sliding a steaming cup of ginger tea toward her. "And you're hiding something. Spill it." Elena sipped the tea slowly, staring at the floor. "I'm pregnant." Isla's mouth dropped open. "Oh my God. Whose is it?" "Elena. Elena Reynolds." Isla blinked. "You didn't." "I did," Elena whispered. "Once. After the Maison Vieira celebration. I didn't plan it. I didn't even—" "Ethan Stone?" Isla gasped. "You slept with the CEO?" Elena nodded. Isla sat back. "Okay. Wow. That's wow." "And I told him," Elena added, voice bitter. "He thought I wanted a promotion." Isla's face softened. "Oh, honey, I didn't ask for anything. I just thought he had a right to know." "Of course he did. And you did the right thing. You're strong, Lena, like your mom." Elena blinked away tears. "I'm scared." Isla reached across the table. "You're not alone." And that's when everything began to shift. At the 12-week scan, Elena saw the little flicker of a heartbeat. It made her breath catch. This was real. This wasn't a complication or a problem to hide. It was a life. And she would protect it. 3 days later, Ethan knocked on the door of her office. She looked up, expression guarded. "Yes." He walked in slowly, not the dominant CEO this time, but something else, something closer to unsure. "I want to talk." Elena said nothing, just closed her laptop and nodded once. Ethan sat. "I didn't handle that well," he said. She raised an eyebrow. Understatement. He breathed out. "I'm not used to this. I plan for everything. I don't like surprises. I wasn't expecting this either, Ethan, but I'm not some scandal you need to manage. He shook his head. I know. You're not. Silence fell. Then softly, are you okay? Elena blinked. That was the first time he had asked. I'm managing. He nodded. Do you need anything? I'm not here for child support or a title. I'm keeping the baby. I don't expect you to be involved, but I also won't hide it. Ethan studied her. I want to be involved. That caught her off guard. He leaned forward. I've been thinking a lot about my father, about what kind of man I want to be. I don't want to disappear or be cold. I want to try. Elena stared at him. This isn't a contract, Ethan. This is a child. I know, he said, and I want to earn my place. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes that wasn't control or calculation. It was sincerity. Okay, she whispered. We'll figure it out. From that day forward, things changed. They didn't become a couple overnight, but Ethan started showing up. He took her to the 16-week appointment. He brought her lunch during back-to-back meetings. He started texting, short messages at first, then longer ones. How are you feeling today? Need anything? Thought you might like this article about second trimester tips. It wasn't romantic, but it was consistent, and consistency meant more to Elena than flowers ever could. She started to see sides of him she hadn't known existed. One evening, after reviewing campaign footage late, she was about to leave when he stopped her at the elevator. Can I walk you out? She hesitated, then nodded. Outside, the wind was crisp. The city lights blinked around them. I didn't grow up with warmth, he said suddenly, but I want to learn how to create it. Elena looked at him. For the baby? For both of you, he said. She didn't respond, but she didn't walk away either. By the time Elena entered her third trimester, things had settled into a strange kind of rhythm. She and Ethan weren't in a relationship, not in the traditional sense, but they were connected. He never missed an appointment. He read parenting books between meetings. He even built the crib himself, though Elena suspected the house staff had assisted more than he admitted. Still, effort mattered. One Friday afternoon, Elena was sitting on the nursery floor, surrounded by pastel blankets and unopened baby gifts. Her feet were swollen. Her back ached, and every movement made her wince. Isla arrived with 2 milkshakes and a look of determination. We're organizing this chaos, she announced, dropping onto the floor beside her. Elena groaned. I can't feel my spine. Isla laughed. Pregnancy looks good on you. Tired, cranky, glowing chaos. As they sorted through tiny socks and baby books, Isla grew quiet. You think he's really changed? She asked. Elena sighed. I don't know. Maybe. He's trying. Isla raised an eyebrow. Trying doesn't mean he won't revert when things get real. I know. That's why I'm not depending on him. I'm preparing for both outcomes. And what if he wants more? Elena hesitated. Then he'll have to show me. A week later, something unexpected happened. Ethan invited Elena to his mother's old house in Lake Geneva. It was quiet, peaceful, miles away from corporate chaos. She arrived to find a warm fire, soft music playing, and a simple dinner on the table. Ethan, wearing jeans and a gray sweater, looked more like a man than a CEO for once. Why did you bring me here? She asked. He handed her a glass of water, guiding her to the couch. My mother used to bring me here when my dad got difficult. It was her safe place. And I guess I wanted to share that with you. Elena looked at the soft, worn photographs on the mantel. A woman with kind eyes. A boy with guarded ones. I'm sorry, she said quietly. He nodded. I never understood why she stayed, why she never left him. But now, I think she stayed for me. Elena watched him, heart aching. You'll be a better father than he was, she whispered. I hope so, Ethan replied. That night, as she lay in the guest room, the baby kicked for the first time with real strength. Elena placed her hand on her belly, smiling through tears. Maybe she wouldn't have to do this alone. On a rainy Monday morning, everything changed. Elena was giving a presentation when a sharp pain shot through her back and wrapped around her stomach. She froze, breathed. Everyone stared. I'm okay, she whispered, gripping the table. Then another wave hit, stronger this time. Her knees buckled. Someone call 911. Isla shouted from the back. Ethan was there in less than 15 minutes. At the hospital, Elena gritted her teeth through early contractions. The baby was coming 6 weeks early. Ethan sat beside her, panic flashing behind his calm exterior. Breathe, she whispered to him between contractions. You're in labor. I should be telling you that, he muttered, eyes wide. She chuckled, then winced. Guess we're both in uncharted waters. Hours later, after an emergency C-section, Elena faded in and out of consciousness. But when she finally opened her eyes, the room was quiet, dimly lit, and Ethan was sitting beside her, holding a tiny bundle in his arms. She's perfect, he whispered, voice breaking. Elena blinked slowly, fighting back tears. He nodded, gently placing the baby in her arms. Our daughter! The moment Elena looked into those tiny eyes, all her fears melted. It didn't matter that this wasn't planned. It didn't matter that nothing was certain. She was here, and she was theirs. Ethan leaned down, pressing his forehead to Elena's. You were incredible. I was terrified, she whispered. Me too. But we did it. Yes, he said softly. We did. And for the first time, they weren't two successful people avoiding love. They were just Elena and Ethan. Two imperfect people with a perfect little girl. The NICU was quiet, dimly lit, filled with soft beeping machines, and the tiniest of cribs. Elena sat beside the incubator, her fingers gently tracing the curve of the glass. Their daughter, whom they had decided to name Lila, was barely 4 pounds, wrapped in warmth and tubes, her chest rising and falling with machine-assisted breath. Ethan stood behind her, silent, watching, guarding. She's so small, Elena whispered, voice trembling. She's strong, Ethan replied, almost to himself. Like her mother. For the next 2 weeks, the NICU became their second home. Elena didn't leave. She sang lullabies to Lila at sunrise and read her bedtime stories at midnight. Ethan, meanwhile, transformed in ways no one could have imagined. He adjusted meetings around feeding schedules. His tailored suits were replaced by soft tees and dark circles under his eyes. He learned how to swaddle, how to hold Lila without disturbing the wires, how to support Elena without being asked. They weren't perfect. They were exhausted, overwhelmed, often scared, but they were together. One evening, Isla visited with bags of clean clothes, snacks, and a look that said you've both lost your minds. But I love you anyway. I brought actual food, she said, plopping into the chair beside Elena. And diapers. Because apparently, even babies under 5 pounds poop like champions. Elena let out a tired laugh. Isla's eyes drifted to Ethan, who stood at the window on the phone, quietly discussing marketing projections like a man who hadn't been sleeping on hospital couches. Is he okay? She asked softly. Elena nodded. He's here. That's a start. Later that night, As Elena dozed off in the rocking chair beside Lila's crib, Ethan knelt quietly, placing a light blanket over her. He watched her for a long time. The woman who once stood in his boardroom, fierce and unreachable, now looked peaceful, vulnerable, holding their future in her arms. And something in him shifted again. He wanted this. Not just the baby. Not just fatherhood. Her. When Lila was finally discharged from the hospital, the Grayson estate welcomed her like a blessing. Ethan insisted they all stay together at first. For safety, he claimed, but everyone knew it was more than that. In the nursery, late one night, Elena fed Lila as Ethan sat on the floor nearby, assembling a mobile of tiny stars and moons. "You're really doing it," she whispered. "Doing what?" "Being a dad." Ethan smiled without looking up. "I thought it would terrify me, but it doesn't." Elena watched him quietly. "Why not?" "Because I'm not doing it alone." The words made her chest tighten. They had tiptoed around feelings for weeks, focused on diapers and doctor visits, and figuring out how to work with no sleep. But this moment felt different, raw, real. Ethan stood, approaching her slowly. He took the bottle from her hands and carefully shifted Lila into his arms. The baby settled immediately, cheek resting against his chest. Ethan met Elena's gaze. "I don't want to just be in Lila's life, Elena." Her breath caught. "I want to be in yours." The silence between them was soft, like a question hanging in the air. "I've made mistakes," he added, "but I want to fix them. I want us to be a family, not just in paperwork or photos." Elena looked down, heart thudding. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of you. Of trusting it." "I know," he said, "and I don't want to lose myself." "Then don't. Be exactly who you are. I'll make room." He reached out, brushing his knuckles along her jaw. "You taught me how to love, Elena. You didn't even know it. But I've been falling since the night you read me your mother's quote." She blinked. "The one on the champagne napkin?" He nodded. "You don't have to be fearless. Just willing." And in that moment, Elena realized she was willing to try, willing to fall, willing to love. 6 months later, the world looked entirely different. Lila now had chubby cheeks, wide, curious eyes, and a laugh that made even the coldest winter mornings feel like spring. Her presence had transformed everything, not just the home, but the hearts within it. Elena had returned to work, but on her own terms. Maison Vieira offered her a promotion to global director, but she declined. Instead, she launched a boutique creative firm that specialized in campaigns built around authenticity and motherhood. Clients came not just for her brilliance, but for her story. And Ethan? He had never been more grounded. He still ran his empire, but now he left meetings early to be home for bedtime stories. He attended parent workshops, built a high chair with his own hands, and even learned how to braid hair on a doll in preparation for Lila's future curls. He was no longer just a powerful CEO. He was a present father. And slowly, gently, he became a partner. One crisp autumn evening, Elena stood in the kitchen, swaying softly with Lila on her hip. The baby rested her head against her mother's shoulder, half asleep. The scent of cinnamon and vanilla lingered in the air from the apple pie Isla had dropped off earlier. Ethan walked in, loosening his tie. He paused when he saw them. The glow from the stove light wrapping around them like a memory. "You look like home," he said quietly. Elena looked up, tired but smiling. "I feel like it for the first time." He walked over, gently kissed Lila's forehead, then met Elena's gaze. "I have something to ask you." She raised an eyebrow. "If it's about changing another diaper, the answer's no." He chuckled. then slowly pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small velvet box. Elena blinked. Ethan, he opened it, but instead of a ring, it held a tiny gold locket. Inside, a photo of Lila on one side. On the other, a tiny engraving. Willing. Tears welled in Elena's eyes. I'll propose properly one day, Ethan said, voice steady. But for now, I just want to say, I'm all in. Not because I have to be, because I choose to be. Elena closed the box, then leaned up and kissed him. No need to wait, she whispered. We're already a family. They didn't throw a lavish wedding, just a garden ceremony with 20 guests, fairy lights in the trees, Isla officiating while Lila tried to eat her flower crown. It was perfect. No drama, no spectacle, just two people who had built something real from something unexpected. On their wedding night, as they lay beneath a quilt of stars, Elena rested her head on Ethan's chest and whispered, Do you ever think about how this all started? A bottle of wine. A mistake. A miracle, she corrected. Ethan turned and kissed her temple. The best one. Years later, Lila would grow up hearing the story, not the corporate one or the scandalous version tabloids once speculated on, but the real story, how her mother didn't need saving, how her father had to unlearn everything he thought made him powerful, how love doesn't always come wrapped in fairy tales. Sometimes it arrives in messy moments, unplanned nights, and quiet decisions. And how her name, Lila, meant night beauty, because even the darkest nights can bloom into something extraordinary. As for Elena and Ethan, they weren't perfect, but every night they showed up. Every morning they tried again.